and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Good day. I'll be giving my Week 12 college football predictions for the 2025 season. So starting with Notre Dame at Pittsburgh. So this Notre Dame team has been very inconsistent because at the beginning of the season, their defense was playing bad, and it has gotten a lot better since then. So maybe that was just that it took a few games to get used to the new defensive coordinator. But when their defense was struggling, their offense was a scoring machine. Their offense was playing better than I thought it would in the preseason. But since they've appeared to get their defense fixed, their offense has had a couple of bad games against Boise State, only scoring 28 points. And well, if you scored 28 points against Ohio State, that would be considered great against a group of five team with the roster that Notre Dame has. That's not very good. And then a few weeks later, they only scored 25 points against Boston College, who was a 1-9 team, the worst Power Four team in the country, along with Oklahoma State. And their defense ranks 128th. And well, I think Notre Dame is actually a top 10 team. They're going to have to get more consistent to actually be able to make a run in the college football playoff. And if Notre Dame can win this game, I'd say they've got a 99% chance of finishing 10-2 because their last two games are against 3-7 dumps at Syracuse and Stanford. But Pittsburgh actually does not have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive because even though they already have two losses, only one of them is a conference loss. And Notre Dame is a non-conference game. So even if they lose this one, if they win their last two, they will be in the ACC championship. So both Notre Dame and Pittsburgh have struggled in the secondary. Notre Dame's giving up 232.3 yards per game passing on average, and Pittsburgh's giving up 237.4 on average. And I think that means there's going to be a lot of passing yards in this game because Pittsburgh ranks 11th in the country in passing, averaging 302.6 yards per game. And Notre Dame ranks 26th in passing, averaging 271.7 per game. And that's the best Notre Dame's been at passing in a very long time. And part of that is because CJ Carr has done a very good job at quarterback, but a lot of it is because this is the best the wide receivers have been for Notre Dame in a long time. While they still don't have a wide receiver that you would consider to be elite, that every defense would be scared of, Jordan Faison is one of the better wide receivers in college football. He's got 43 catches for 545 and three touchdowns. And Pittsburgh has two good wide receivers, Raphael Williams and Kenny Johnson. They've combined for 73 catches for 1,098 yards and 10 touchdowns this season. And like CJ Carr, Pittsburgh's quarterback Mason Hines Skull or whatever his name is also a freshman. And he wasn't the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. He's only been their starter the last five games. But he was only a three-star recruit, but he's been playing better than a three-star. He's at completing on average at 64.1% of his passes and is averaging 8.4 yards per throw. But Notre Dame has a big advantage in the run game. Jeremiah Love, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Heisman finalist.
Love, a lot of effort, but well played by this Navy defense. They never blew him down. And now Love has speed down the sideline. Jeremiah Love race to the pylon. He wins.
He's got nearly 1,000 yards rushing this season, and him and Jadarian Price have combined for 1,556 yards and 22 touchdowns. But good news for Pittsburgh is their star running back, Desmond Reed, who's missed the last 3 games with an injury, is going to be back healthy for this game. And he was one of the best running backs in the country a year ago. And Pittsburgh's run defense has been really good this year, only giving up 80.9 yards rushing per game on average. So that will give them a good chance of slowing down the Notre Dame run game. But Notre Dame's run game is not really something that can be shut down. It's just too good. But Pittsburgh is only averaging 124.2 yards rushing per game, which ranks 104th in the country. Now, some of that is because Desmond Reed has been out, but a lot of it, I think, is because their offensive line is not very good. They're only averaging 3.7 yards per run, and they've been struggling in pass protection. They've already given up 26 sacks, and Notre Dame's run defense is good too. They're only giving up 103.7 yards rushing per game on average. Notre Dame, I think, will be able to run the football a lot better than Pittsburgh will in this game. And I think their offensive line makes the difference. Their offensive line is only given up 10 sacks all year, and they're averaging 5.3 yards per run. So I think this will be competitive, but I think Notre Dame gets a couple of big runs that Pittsburgh won't be able to get, and they'll pull away late. I've got Notre Dame getting the win over Pittsburgh by a score of 24-24. So now Oklahoma at Alabama. So these are the two best defenses in the SEC, and Alabama has the SEC's best secondary, and Oklahoma has the SEC's best defensive line. And these are two offenses that have not been great if you look at points scored. But they both have one of the best quarterbacks. Ty Simpson is a better passer than John Mateer is, but John Mateer is a much better runner than Ty Simpson is. Ty Simpson was listed as a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, but that's not really shown up this season. He has under 100 yards rushing, and Mateer's legs, I think, are going to be a big part of Oklahoma's offensive game plan in this game. I think he's going to need 15 plus carries. And this Alabama offense has been more like the offenses that Kalen DeBoer and his offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb had when they were at Washington, and that it's a pass first offense. And Ty Simpson is a quarterback similar to Michael Penix, a lot different than Jalen Milroe because he's a pocket passer and he puts up huge numbers through the air. But this offense hasn't been near as good as the offenses they had at Washington because they don't have any sort of a run game to help out the quarterback that the Washington offenses had. And if Alabama had those Washington defenses, they wouldn't be anywhere close to 8-1. But with Mateer and Xavier Robinson, Oklahoma, I think, will have the advantage running the football in this game. Robinson has rushed for 224 and 3 touchdowns in these last 2 games, with a 65-yard run against Ole Miss and a 43-yard run against Tennessee. I think he'll have another big run in this game. And against this Oklahoma front seven, I would be surprised if Alabama even gets 100 yards rushing. But I think this Alabama secondary is going to hold Oklahoma under 200 yards passing. Oklahoma, they do have a couple of good wide receivers, but they don't quite have a Ryan Williams. But good news for Oklahoma is Gentry Williams, one of their really good cornerbacks, who's been out the last two games, is going to play in this game. And Oklahoma's secondary has struggled in the last two games. And while some of that may have been because Gentry Williams was out, a lot of it, though, I think is because the competition has been tougher. And I think Ty Simpson and his wide receivers, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Isaiah Horton, are going to give the Oklahoma secondary some problems in this game. So Oklahoma's best defensive lineman and pass rusher, Mason Thomas, I saw is questionable to play in this game, but Oklahoma does have so much depth on the defensive line that they should still be in good shape there, whether if he plays or not. But of course, it would be a big help to them if he could play. And Alabama linebacker Yonze Pere has become their best pass rusher, and he's only a freshman. And he's already got 6 sacks this season, and he had 2 sacks last week against LSU. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game that probably goes down to the end, but I'm going with Alabama for two reasons. One of them being it's in Tuscaloosa, and DeBoer still hasn't lost in Tuscaloosa, and another one being that it's a revenge game for Alabama. This game took them out of the college football playoff last season. So I've got Alabama getting the win over Oklahoma by a score 20-16. So now Texas at Georgia. So Georgia's run game has been so much better than it was a year ago. They're averaging 197.2 rushing yards per game, which ranks 24th in the country. But good news for Texas is their run defense is one of the best in the country. They're only giving up on average 78.7 yards rushing per game. I do think they can slow down the Georgia run game, but I don't think they can shut it down. I do think Georgia will run for close to 150 yards in this game. Their two running backs, Bowens and Frazier, are one of the better running back combinations in the SEC. And Georgia's run defense has been really good too, only giving up 100.2 yards per game on an average. And Texas has struggled to run the football so much this season that I'd be surprised if they even run for 100 yards in this game. Now, some of this is because their top two running backs, Wisner and Baxter, have been injured this season. But they got both Wisner and Baxter healthy for the Vanderbilt game, and they still overall struggled to run. Wisner had 75 yards, but Baxter only had 22 yards on 7 carries. Most of it, I think, has been because of poor play by the offensive line, because Baxter and Wisner should have been one of the SEC's better running back combinations. And for the most part, Gunnar Stockton has been a better quarterback than Arch Manning. They're both considered to be dual threats, but that showed up more in Stockton than it has in Manning. But Texas's secondary is a big concern in this game because they're giving up 235.3 yards passing per game on average. And their best player, though, in the secondary, Michael Taft, will be back for this game. But I have a feeling that Gunnar Stockton is going to pick them apart and throw for over 300 yards. But for Texas to have a chance, I think Arch Manning is going to have to play like he did against Vanderbilt. Georgia's secondary, while it's better than Texas's is, it has struggled against good quarterbacks, but for the most part, Arch Manning has not been good. Georgia's defense, though, has not been able to get much pressure on quarterbacks, which is very unusual for a Kirby Smart defense. Texas does have a better pass rush than they do because they have Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. But Georgia linebacker C.J. Allen is one of the best in the country. He has the most tackles on the team with 75, which is the second most by any player in the SEC. And he's a better pass rusher than he was a year ago. He has 3.5 sacks this season. And Stockton has better protection than Manning does from his offensive line. The Georgia offensive line has been one of the best in the country this season. They've only given up 10 sacks. And at wide receiver, they're pretty similar. Ryan Wingo, the best Texas wide receiver I saw, is expected to play after getting hurt in the Vanderbilt game. And he's as talented as Georgia's Zachariah Branch is. I think this will be competitive, but I'm going with Georgia for a few reasons. One of them being Georgia has a better offense. I don't think the Texas offense is going to be able to score much in this game, and the game is at Georgia. Georgia never loses at Georgia unless they're playing Alabama, who they always lose to no matter where they play them at. But the Texas defense, I think, would have to have a game like they did against Ohio State for them to have a chance of winning this one. And Kirby Smart is a better head coach right now than Steve Sarkisian is. Now, I'm not saying Sarkisian couldn't get to Smart's level. I think he could, but Kirby Smart isn't losing to teams like Florida. I think it'll be close for most of the game, but I think Georgia scores a touchdown late to go up by 2 touchdowns. I've got Georgia getting the win over Texas by a score of 31-17. So now Florida at Ole Miss. So Ole Miss is going to have a huge quarterback advantage in this game because Florida is going back to Dud Lagway at quarterback who can't throw or run. And Ole Miss has Trinidad Chambliss, who is the first SEC quarterback in more than 30 years to have 3 games in a row of 300 yards passing and 50 yards rushing. And Ole Miss has a much better group of wide receivers than Florida does. Florida's going to be without their best wide receiver, Eugene Wilson, and Ole Miss, their main five of Deuce Alexander, Trey Wallace, Caden Lee, Dazon Stripling, and Daquan Wright. That's about as good of a wide receiver tight end group as you're going to have. They've combined for 143 catches for 2,298 yards and 12 touchdowns this season. Now, Florida does have a running back that's about as good as Ole Miss's, Kaiwan Lacey, Jaden Ball. He has 747 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry. And if I was the Florida interim head coach and offensive coordinator, I'd try to get Jaden Ball at least 25 carries in this game because of, well, he's not the fastest running back. He is a very physical running back that's good at running between the tackles. And Kaiwan Lacey, He's not the most physical running back, but he's as fast of a running back as you're going to find. Jaden Jordan Ball, though, he doesn't have the speed of Kaiwan Lacey. But Florida was the only team that was able to run on Ole Miss last year. Uh, Ole Miss, they are a lot easier to run on this year. They're giving up 143.6 rushing yards per game on average, but that average is a lot better than what they were giving up early in the season. But Ole Miss has more backup help for Kaiwan Lacey than Florida does for Jaden Ball. Kaiwan Lacey is no doubt going to reach 1,000 yards before the regular season is over. Now, Florida will probably get some good runs on Ole Miss, but for Florida, that's all they have offensively is Jaden Ball. Ole Miss, they have a better offensive line than Florida does, and you're not beating Ole Miss with only one good offensive player. Ole Miss, their secondary has been pretty good at giving up on average only 179.5 yards per game passing. It's been better than I thought it would be. I don't see Florida having much success passing in this game. I think Florida is also really going to struggle with the Ole Miss passing attack. Their secondary has not been very good this season. I think Chambliss will throw for about 300 yards in this game. Now, Florida's run defense has been solid, giving up 132.8 on average per game. So they may be able to slow down the Ole Miss run game a little bit, but I'm going with Ole Miss because while Florida will probably play better than they did against Kentucky and make it competitive, Ole Miss, this is a revenge game for them, and this game took them out of the college football playoff last year, and it's a home game for Ole Miss, and Ole Miss just has too much offense for Florida to be able to keep up with. I think Ole Miss pulls away late and wins it by a couple of scores. I've got Ole Miss 31, Florida 17. I mean 21. So that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.